And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Top Talk podcast. I'm your host, Harris Areno. Alongside me, co-host Dan Kiley, episode 106 of the Top Talk podcast. It's game week again. It was a pretty brief bye week, it felt like. Not too much going on. Got to sit back on the couch and watch football pretty much all day without I wouldn't say the stress of a Georgia game, but not having to worry about missing kickoff because I want to watch another game or doing this and that. So pretty stress for your weekend, Dan. What do you say? What do you say about that?
The weekend, it's my weekend. So, my weekends. My weekends are busier than normal people's. I don't know. I don't know what a weekend is, Harrison. I don't ever have a break. But there will be a day when I will miss it, and then I'll be complaining about how I don't have anything to do. So, it is what it is.
Hey, it's only a problem until it's not a problem.
You know what I did do? I did build a liquor cabinet. That was fun.
I did see that. Dan sent us pictures of that one. I know Jonathan and Jeremiah did offer to help you come empty it, so you can go ahead and build a second one. But
yeah, there you go. I need to fill it up.
Hey, if you're not working this weekend, which something tells me Dan is going to be working this weekend, he might be able to get started on that project, watching the Georgia-Florida game, because it is the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. And I'm sure people will have more than a few drinks at this game as they enjoy their Bulldogs, or if you're with us, Gator fans, will enjoy their Florida Gators. Hey, if you are a Florida Gator fan watching, shout out to you for getting a little, I guess, opponent intel, if you will, about our expectations for the Georgia Bulldogs. Dan, let's not hold up the people any further. Let's go into hot topics. Different format for hot topics today. No really questions for this one. Not really. Not even. I mean, they're hot topics, but they're just more so hot topics from major storylines around college football. Dan, biggest story I'd say in all of college football, maybe in football in general, is what's going on over there at Michigan. Michigan had a hell of an offseason. They were investigated for violations, recruiting violations from during COVID, and I don't know when those nefarious activities ended, as opposed, to when that investigation opened and when those, whatever they did, stopped. But now they're involved in another scandal. It seems to keep piling on here. Sign stealing scandal. It broke, I want to say last Friday or last Thursday, that they had a staffer, maybe multiple staffers that maybe haven't been mentioned yet, going to games, spending thousands, well, I would assume would be thousands of dollars to go to future Michigan opponent football games and steal signs. There was a report from Pete Thamel the other day, I forget which day he published it, that said he was spotted on surveillance camera, the staffer, videotaping the opposing sideline, who just so happened to be a future Michigan opponent, allegedly filming their hand signals. Dan, I wanted to get your take on this. I want to talk about this today. How serious is this? Are you like even teensy bit interested in this, or is this just another case of the NCAA trying to show backbone when in reality there may not be a backbone?
So I have questions. Here's my questions. The information that we keep hearing is different depending on who you hear it from. It's a guy who used to be a former Marine, a guy who's a covert operations guy. So my question would be on that regard, if this guy is a covert operations, how is he leaving a paper trail and getting caught this easily? That'd be my first question. Second of all, I've heard that he had tickets at the 50-yard line in the lower section, but then I've also heard that these tickets were in the upper deck opposite the bench. And he was taping, from what I understand, he was taping with a cell phone, with a cell phone. So there's a million people in the stands with cell phones that are taping different things. I mean, I have a lot more questions than I do have answers. And then my other question to you would be, why is Michigan being targeted and singled out? And listen, I hate Michigan, so I promise you I'm not defending Michigan or Jim Harbaugh. But my question is, we know that sign stealing is a thing. If you go to a Georgia game, hell, watch a Georgia game on television. There are these big, huge blankets. They look like bed sheets that they hold up. Now they have a Georgia G on them because we got to brand everything, baby. But now you got a big Georgia G bed blanket that's being held up so that the coach could secretly sign his plays into his players, and the TV can't pick it up and all that stuff. So, like, everybody knows that sign stealing is a real thing because every team in the country has to try to hide their signs. So why is it that Michigan is being targeted because that they've stolen signs when clearly it's an issue with everyone? Because if it wasn't an issue with everyone, then we wouldn't have teams hiding stuff on the sidelines. And it's the NFL, it's high school, it's college, it doesn't matter. Go turn on any game. There will be a game on Thursday. Hell, there might be a damn college game on tomorrow. I'm not even 100% sure. Do we have like Maction on Wednesday nights now? I'm not 100% sure. But whenever you turn on the next football game that you turn on, I promise you, you're going to see some sort of shielding for the coach that's signaling the plays. So my question is, and I've heard all sorts of different reactions. I've saw somebody that I respect immensely today saying this is the most egregious thing he's ever seen. I'm like, really? That's the take? This is egregious? We all know that sign stealing goes on because every school is trying to hide their signs. Well, you wouldn't be hiding it if you don't think somebody's trying to steal it. So like I said, I have more questions than I have answers for you, Harrison, and I know you probably wanted something a lot more definitive out of me. But my biggest takeaway from this is, why is Michigan the one under attack when clearly it's an issue with everyone?
Well, I can give you a few answers on some fronts. I think, for starters, it is against the big thing here is not sign stealing itself. Like you said, there is sign stealing in college football. Now it's the source and how you steal the signs is what's causing Michigan trouble. When Georgia's being watched on tape by opposing teams, if their signs are going to be caught on camera, it's inevitable. People are going to see it. People are going to see it during a game, kind of like you said. But the problem here that the NCAA has found, and the reason they're investigating, is Michigan was going against an NCAA bylaw and having a staffer paying. I don't know if they paid for the staff. I don't know if the staffer paid himself. I don't know if he was assigned to go. I don't know how this all came up because that's still under investigation, frankly. But anyways, they had a staffer going to games, paying his way to go to games, other future Michigan opponents, and directly filming that sideline and their signals, and then using those on a sheet during the game. It is against NCAA laws to have in-person scouting. The only scouting you can do before a game in the NCAA that is allowed is from the All-22.
So one quick thing. Supposedly there is a paper trail where this guy has been paying for all of his own stuff, and that's how he got caught. So apparently there is a paper trail where he's paid for his own stuff. So Michigan's not paying for this guy, and he's not on their staff. So I don't know.
He is on their staff. I do know that he is on their staff. There are videos of him on. I don't know the exact title of him. I know it was on his LinkedIn, but that has been erased recently.
You can go on Michigan's website, and he's not on there.
Well, they don't have everybody up there. I know Georgia has some people that are not up there. I know I know from just my research, some recruiting staffers aren't up there, which it's just kind of it just happens these days. But I'll have to look up what his I lost my train of thought. I have to look up his job title because I don't know exactly what it was. I want to say he was some quality control. He wasn't an on-field coach. I do know that. He was, there's just videos of him on the sideline holding his sheet of paper, which allegedly, from the very limited photos we've seen that have been put online, appear to be, basically your regular sheet of paper laminated with drawings. I can't tell you what the drawings are. Allegedly, they are signals. And there's one video going around of Ohio State, I guess, giving out a sign, audibling to something, and then him looking down at his paper, telling allegedly the defensive coordinator, hey, this is what they're doing, or relaying the signal to him, and they relay whatever their signal is to counter it. It happens. Like, that does happen. Teams pick up on signs throughout a game, pick up on signs, even through All-22. Like Dan said, despite everybody trying to hide it, this stuff still happens. It's just, at the end of the day, he didn't do it the way, allegedly didn't do it the way that the NCAA allows it to be done. Next question, Dan, on this thing, and then we'll move on. I think everybody's known for the last 2-3 years specifically. It's felt like Jim Harbaugh, kind of like Dan Mullen in his last few years at Florida, is focused on the NFL. Like that's his end goal. It feels like he wants to go to the NFL. He was very publicly interviewing for jobs. Was it not just last offseason or the offseason before? I want to say after the Georgia game, he went out there and got some interviews. I want to say the Jets were one of the interviews
Minnesota
that he had. Yeah, Minnesota. So to me, it's just the way I framed this question to you in text when we talked about it, I want to say Sunday night or maybe Monday, is he leaving a John Calipari type parting gift to Michigan? Because when you look at John Calipari kind of leaves a paper trail. I know you're a much better basketball guy than I am. College
Rick
basketball,
Pitino.
pro basketball. Rick Pitino leaving a paper trail for the team he's about to leave. Like just piling it on in an effort to win before he leaves. What do you say?
I don't know that he's leaving a paper trail. So let me answer your question with a different question. Okay. So the conspiracy theory is that Jim Harbaugh has been very I got this from my stepfather, who is a huge Michigan fan. He's on all of the boards. So this is what the Michigan fans wholeheartedly believe, that Jim Harbaugh has come out publicly and supported athletes getting some type of revenue sharing at the college level. And this is a way that the NCAA is allowed to separate themselves from Jim Harbaugh. They are trying to rid the sport of Jim Harbaugh because he actively supports the athletes in a revenue sharing system. So is this Jim Harbaugh trying to leave a parting shot at the NCAA, or is this the NCAA trying to rid themselves of Jim Harbaugh? If you believe in conspiracy theories, that's a pretty damn solid one, because what is the hottest topic right now in college football is the revenue sharing NIL deals type deal where, they're not happy with, listen, it's better than it was. College players are allowed to make money now. And, just imagine if this was in place a couple of years ago. This is a complete sidetrack. Sorry, Harrison, and I'm going to derail our show for 2 seconds. So Destroying Football is probably one of the best YouTube pages there is. And he was a kicker, if I'm not mistaken, at UCF. And the NCAA told him he had to quit his podcast because he was making too much money, because he was making like $1 million from YouTube or something like that. And he was like, the hell with you guys. Like, I'm here. That guy could still be possibly an NFL kicker at this point and a famous YouTuber. So anyway, sorry for the sidetrack there, Harrison. And quit going solo screen with me. I hate that crap. So my whole thing is, if you believe in a conspiracy theory, and I think it's a damn solid one, is that the NCAA is trying to rid themselves of Jim Harbaugh because he is an advocate for the athlete. Where do you fall on that?
That's a different point than what I think a lot of people have brought to the table. It's kind of interesting to see that. I've seen a lot of Michigan fans just in like the comment sections of these big posts talking about everybody's doing it. Why is this a big deal? Why are they targeting us? Why, all this and that. Or I saw one today, Dan. I was on Instagram. It was I perceive it was a Michigan fan just went in there and said, they're just doing this because Ohio State's a big crybaby. I'm like, okay. So yeah, I think I'm kind of with Zach on this, who says I think neither. I think he just got caught stealing signs, which very well could be true. I think that's probably where everyone's head is leaning. My biggest question with this, Dan, is how did this get started? Was it Stallion's idea? Was it truly just a one-man show? Or was there somebody above him, whether it's Jim Harbaugh, somebody else that tells him, hey, we're going to let you do this. Like, this is your job. This is what your job title is. And this is what you got to do. And you can't tell anybody about it. So that's my big question, because there's like two routes that they can go with this. If Jim Harbaugh knows about it, he's screwed, in my opinion. Like, formally just screwed. But if he doesn't, then somehow it doesn't, then they can just hit him with the lack of institutional control, which I guess is lesser of a penalty. But I just keep going back to it, Dan. It would be a full 360 for this show for Dan and I to sit here and tell you that we have confidence in the NCAA bringing penalties down in Michigan, because they already got scot-free on one violation, on a couple of violations just this season. He already negotiated his suspension.
Mm-hmm.
He already gave them the Johnny Estrada double bill. I'm doing what I want. As I take Dan's tagline right there. So I can't sit here and tell you that I have confidence that anything's going to come of this. Heck, we may not even know any of this and like the conclusions of this until Jim Harbaugh is in the NFL.
Well, so here, I will end this particular question with a perfect summary. And I got this from Nick Cellini today on 680 The Fan. And he said, with this Jim Harbaugh thing, he has to fall back to the, Robert De Niro's character in Casino. I had it on the tip of my tongue. I was getting ready to say it, and then I forgot it. Oh, my God. Somebody save me. Robert De Niro, Casino, Jimmy, it doesn't matter. Anyway, that character, he fires a guy at the casino because he lets the jackpot hit back to back, right? He says either you're in on it or you're too dumb to realize it. Either way, you can't be a part of this, this organization. And I think that's where kind of Michigan has to fall with this Jim Harbaugh stuff, in my opinion, is you're in on it or you were too dumb to notice. And either way, you got to go because this is, I mean, it's too much pressure for Michigan, right? They don't need that. So that's where I fall on that. But let's get to the second one because we really hit that one hard. We're 17 minutes in, Harrison, and we're still on question number 1. So the second one is your reaction. I have not heard this. So this is going to be a Harrison-driven comment. The reaction to Lincoln Riley being rumored to wanting to follow Caleb Williams to the next level. I don't think that Caleb Williams would be a big fan of that at this point, but you heard it. This is your thing. Run with it, babe.
So this is definitely an interesting one. One that I really can't pinpoint as to where it came from, where it originated, but it just popped up on the timeline recently. It got a few folks talking about what Lincoln Riley is going to do, and there's just no evidence or I forget what word I was going to say. Just nothing there. It's just people throwing something on the wall and hoping it sticks. And that may be it, but there were just people on the timeline saying that he could go to the NFL, follow Caleb Williams. There was one specific job. I want to say maybe was it the Bears, something like that, where they were saying that's the job that Lincoln Riley would want to take to follow Caleb Williams if he was to be drafted there. Not much to it. I do know Lincoln Riley did come out and say we're not going anywhere. We signed up to do this for a long time, which, hey, I'd expect nothing less from a currently signed and employed head coach to come out and say we're not going anywhere. I mean, heck, Nick Saban told the Miami Dolphins he wasn't taking the Alabama job, ended up taking the Alabama job. It's procedure here. So, all right, am I going to sit here and tell you that no, there's no chance in hell that Lincoln Riley takes an NFL job? No, because things change. They say what they want you to say. They say what you want them to say, because you're not going to come out, and say, "Hey, I'm leaving" before you even have a job. So, I'm always interested to see how Lincoln Riley would do in the NFL. I think he is, like people give him credit for, a really good offensive mind, that a well-respected coach who has had some success here in college football. But as I put on Twitter this weekend, let's not skate.
This is my favorite part of the show where Harrison mutes his mic. So I'm going to come in and save him. Harrison, is your mic back to working? All right. So here's my thing. I think I hear you, right? But I think Jim Harbaugh's already proven that he is a really, really good NFL football coach. He took the San Francisco 49ers to the NFC Championship game and then on to the Super Bowl to play against his brother, and he didn't win it. But, they did shut the lights out on him. Maybe he would have won it. Who knows? But I really think, and, I know you said Lincoln Riley to Chicago. I don't see that as a fit at all. There is nothing about Chicago that screams Lincoln Riley with a high-octane, up-tempo offense. But Jim Harbaugh is a blue-collar guy. Chicago is a blue-collar town. I happen to know. That's where I'm from. And that's where my grandpa played. So I think Chicago's a perfect fit for Jim Harbaugh. I think having the first and second pick overall is one hell of an enticement for Jim Harbaugh to leave University of Michigan because now you get two massive pieces. Plus, I think that their draft capital this year is really good. And then outside of not having a functional quarterback, tell me if this sounds familiar, Falcons fans, not having a good functional quarterback, they have actually a really solid football team around him. They just need competent quarterback play. And then when Justin Fields actually started playing relatively well, they were winning or they were playing very, the team was performing. So I still think there is a little bit of currency in Justin Fields. So you could probably trade him and get maybe a second for him. I mean, everybody says you get a first and something, but I don't think you can get a first and something for Fields at this point. But I do believe you could probably get a second for Justin. And that's if you're a good organization or if you have a good drafting ability, a second round pick is value. I mean, if you say, hey, the Falcons are going to have an extra second round pick this year, this could be really high. I'm in, dude. I'm in. So, I mean, maybe the Falcons would give up a second for Justin Fields, and maybe it would work out here. I don't know. And then we could start the whole Justin Fields crap all over again. I'd be so excited.
Coming from somebody that from Dan, who may not always be on board or quite so sure about who the Falcons pick and who's making the picks for the Falcons, if he's saying he'd be excited about a another second round pick, I'll take his word for it. Dan, I'm kind of with you on this. There is new info, at least from Ross Dellinger, about this Michigan thing, and then we're moving on. Dellinger says, and I quote, Michigan analyst Connor Stallions is believed to have purchased tickets to scout several games involving schools outside of the Big Ten, including Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. I know fans were making a screenshot, or were showing a screenshot of his Venmo, where apparently he paid somebody or got paid by someone with the description of GA. Apparently, people allege that it was probably tickets for the Georgia-Ohio State game that happened the following day. Who knows? Who knows what that was? It could just be coincidence that I can't explain it. So we're going to sit back. We're going to let that unfold. Meanwhile, Dan's going to give his rant of the week. We had one last week, and I believe we got an MLB rant last week, unless my reeks are running together now. So I'm going to get out of my solo screen. I'm going to put it on Dan's solo screen because he doesn't like it.
All right, so my rant is not going to be long. We are already 20 minutes into the show. We haven't even mentioned Georgia yet. So mine is fake fans. And I am going to hit this from a two-prong approach. One is the fake fans at the University of Georgia. Now, listen, Georgia's had a lot of recent success, and Georgia's always had a very good fan base, right? But you know what happens when a team starts winning. All of these people come running. I always mess up my rants, man. Dadgummit, I was on a roll. All these people come running out of the woodworks to be Georgia fans, right? And they love to just glow in the bask in the glow of the winning, right? But they're not real Georgia fans. So, they're the newest comers to the bandwagon and they jump on and they're all excited, but then they don't have any emotional investment. So then they're looking for the chinks in the armor, the ability to call it out, and they want to be the people who can say, see, I told you so, right? When things don't go well. And those are the people who are the loudest, and those are the people who are the most annoying to deal with in all of the Georgia spaces because they're like, oh, Carson Beck is terrible. He's awful. Stetson Bennett's awful. He's terrible. We can't win with it. We're going to lose without Beck. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Offensive line's terrible. Defense is terrible. This is right? And they just throw, like, your favorite thing, Harrison, is to say is they throw everything and see what sticks, right? Well, those are the fake fans, right? Those are the ones who were on the bandwagon. They bought the brand new Georgia shirt. Hell, they still got tags on all their Georgia stuff because they've been that recent of a Georgia fan. And they are the first ones to go running and making fun of and talking all this crap about Georgia and while claiming to be a fan. But they're not real fans. The real fans are in it for the long haul. We can be frustrated. I mean, I know that in our group chat, it's mostly positive, and that's why our chat's called Blue Skies, because you guys are so positive all the time about everything. And it makes me nauseous how you guys are like little fairy tales, like, and it's just annoying. But every so often, we'll have like a serious question like, hey, what's going on with the offensive line? Why are we not blocking as well as we could? Hey, we're not tackling as well as we usually do. Whatever the case may be. I'm just saying. And but the overall thing, like, we're not selling Georgia. We're not jumping off the bandwagon, and we're not running out to Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called now and just like blasting the team. That's the fake fans. And that leads me to this weekend, because there is not a bigger fake ass fan base in the world than the Florida Gators. Because I have been to Jacksonville, and especially when Georgia is favored to win the football game. Now, keep in mind, when I was attending the game, we never won, not one time. Twitter will always be Twitter. You got that right. So we drove down to Jacksonville, and you couldn't find a damn Florida fan anywhere. They were hidden. They were like roaches in the dark. You couldn't find them. You flip that light on, son, here they come, blah, 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 right? And that's what happens whenever Georgia would lose the game. They would come like roaches out of the woodworks, and they were everywhere. And then they just line in the streets as you're trying to get out of that place, just talking crap, throwing stuff, spilling beer on you, throwing stuff from the second balcony of the old mall that used to be there. I can't remember the name of it right now, and it's driving me crazy. Oh man, I'm just forgetting everything tonight. This is a wrap. But the fake fans is what drives me crazy. The fake Georgia fans, the fake Florida fans. It's so obnoxious. It's so annoying. The fake Georgia fans are the ones that talk shit all the time about Georgia, and then the fake Florida fans, because they're the biggest Florida fans in the world, but you can't find them during the week. But as soon as they win the football game, here they come. That's my rant.
I'm not sure how we. I guess I see the connection there. I'm like, hold up, we're talking about fake fans. I'm like, okay, I like where you're going. I like where you're going. Then we talk Jacksonville and Florida fans. I'm like, I'm lost now. And then Stoddard just derails me even more, calling you Eeyore in the chat. But
how am I Eeyore? I don't know. I don't get it. All right. So if you don't understand the fake fans in Jacksonville, the Florida fan base, right?
Oh, they show up after the win. I see what you're saying. Okay.
They don't show, like, when you go down to Jacksonville, you make a trip out of it, right there. So you're there for multiple days. While you're there, all you see is other Georgia fans, and like, unless Florida's favored. If Florida's favored to win the game, then they're everywhere, okay? But when Georgia was favored to win the football game, you can't find the son of a guns. But as soon as they win, it's like flipping the light on. Here come the roaches.
Hey, I'm gonna take your word for it. I've yet to be to Jacksonville. I do want to go. I need to go. Something tells me it's definitely gonna be with the boys at one point, because we got our pilot Stoddard over there. Gonna be
No, he only flies Jonathan around.
He's gonna be our air taxi here in a little while, hopefully. The boys are gonna have some boys trips. Heck, who knows? We might show up in Europe one day. I don't know. Stoddard definitely wouldn't pass on that, or Stoddard would definitely pass on being the pilot for that one. Dan, let's talk Georgia-Florida game, because you've already kind of given us the great segue into it. Georgia's the favorite. I don't know if that's surprising to anybody right now. Georgia's the number one team in the country, whether or not they should or shouldn't be. That's what they are, and the betting lines are going to reflect that as such. Dan, let's open it up. I'm just going to hit it, right on. What are your expectations for this game? Let's just hear Dan Kiley talk, because this is a team in Florida that you were a little bit higher on than everybody else. I think everyone was saying that it was a 4-5 win football team. Right now, they're on pace. I think they already have 5 wins this year. So they're on pace to maybe match your expectations, or maybe even succeed past your expectations. So let's get Dan Kiley's take on this Florida football team.
I'll give you my take. You son of a bitch. Look at this right here. Flying my dad and my nephew to the game on Friday. You son of a bitch. All right. Well, cut him out of the well. So anyway, here's my take. Florida is a good football team because they have good players. Like, they don't have necessarily the top 10 players that Georgia has, right? They don't have the top 10 classes, but Billy Napier is not a joke of a coach, okay? He did a great job when he was at Louisiana Monroe, or wherever the hell it was he was at. The guy can coach, and he does have talent. It's University of Florida. Like, Like, for all the people who say that Florida has no talent, like, are you effing kidding me right now? It's the University of Florida. It's not Florida Atlantic. Okay, they have talent. Like, do they have the elite talent they once had? Probably not, but they have guys that can play. And Graham Mertz is a quarterback that can make plays. He has an offensive coach that can scheme up plays. They have enough. They have enough to give you a run for the money. Now, this all comes down to a simple fact. I can't even do my take because you got 1920 Georgia. I quit. I quit this damn show. Harrison, you just take over for me. I quit.
Dang, Sauter just comes in here and just drops a bomb and leaves on us. Dan, continue with your point. The talent.
I don't remember what it was. Yeah, so it comes down to one thing. If Georgia's prepared and mentally right to play this football game, they'll be successful. If they're not, they won't. The end. And because the talent from Florida is there to put up a fight, right? Georgia can't sleepwalk into this football game and come out victorious because the other team has enough talent to put up a real fight. So, but if Georgia comes out ready to play, it's not a problem.
This reminds me of what we talked about last year, Dan, because Georgia and Florida were in a very similar situation as they were last year. You told me pre-show, you like, dude, you can't be this confident in a Georgia-Florida game. You're like, the moment you walk in there hightailed, you're going to be tail between your legs out of Jacksonville, and it's a long ride home from Jacksonville. That was exactly kind of the conversation that Dan and I had. Dan was like, dude, I am just not like, it's not because Georgia's not good, and it's not because Florida's great. It's legit because you know how it feels to walk into Jacksonville feeling super confident and to walk out of there feeling like this sucks.
Listen, I'm old enough to remember the entire freaking student section chanting, "We want Shockley." So damn Mark Richt acquiesces to the fans, puts Shockley in the game. He throws a pick six to Lito Shepherd, and we lose the fucking game. In a game that we should have won. Driving home from Jacksonville from another game we should have won. I mean, it's the freaking song. Sorry, you may proceed.
That's exactly what we want. That's exactly what Dan was talking about last year, and I think it's kind of the same mold this year. Although, Dan, from my perspective, I think Georgia's going to win. I feel pretty confident in saying that. I'm not as confident as I would be if Georgia still had Brock Bowers, which that absence looms large, considering you're coming off a bye week and you haven't seen really Georgia play a full game without Brock Bowers just yet. Not saying that Georgia doesn't have talent, because obviously they have talent on that football team to to fill, I don't even want to say fill the void, but let's just say find a new way to win without Brock Bowers. Because as you said last week, you can't replace Brock Bowers. Like, that's what we're going to come here and learn within a few seconds of that football game, maybe on the first third down. It's like, man, we can't replace Brock. We just have to find a new way to win. That's how I'm going to determine from now on. It's not replacing Brock Bowers because you ain't going to do it. It's we got to find a new way to win. Just like you found a new way to win when George Pickens went out, which proceeded to be Brock Bowers. You found a new way to win with A.D. Mitchell out. Also happened to be Brock Bowers. What's the answer now without Brock? That's my big question. I think that's where this game's going to come down to. And I want to highlight this, Dan. The matchup that I really want to highlight, talking about Georgia's offense versus Florida's defense, is the defensive line. When I watched Florida's team on tape, especially against Tennessee, I went back and watched that Tennessee game, and I was texting Dan that night about, maybe it was the morning, I forget. Dan and I were talking about it anyways, and this isn't the same Florida defense, at least from a defensive line perspective, as it was in years past. Like, I look at the defense line, and they got some dudes up front. They got some hitters up there that can win. That I think is going to challenge the Georgia offensive line that I'd say maybe has underperformed. Maybe not so much in the pass protection, more so in the run game. But, Dan, I watched this team. Biggest thing that stands out on tape is big number 99. Big number 99 because, dang, do we remember our 99? Do we remember Jordan Davis? They got a nose tackle.
Oh, is that the fat boy?
That's not Desmond Watson. This is Cam Jackson, a transfer from Memphis, transferred over the offseason to Florida, plays nose tackle. He is a true zero technique that can two-gap for this team. Like, he has, at least in that Tennessee game, he was an integral part in how they shut down that Tennessee run game. Because what was the two things, or actually the main thing that people talked about, like our friend Brooks Austin said going into the Tennessee game last year, what was the key to it? It was shutting down the run with your front four, front seven. If you can't shut down the run with your front seven and you got to add safeties into the box, you're in trouble. And Florida was able to do that without adding in because they had Cam Jackson in the middle and some hack of football players surrounding him. Kelby Collins, a true freshman, highly recruited prospect coming out of high school. Georgia recruited him. He was on Georgia's radar. He's at Florida. He has 2 sacks and 12 pressures. I don't want to butcher this guy's name, but just know it's not Brenton Cox when I say number 1. I want to say his name is Princely. His first name is Princely. He leads the team with 3 sacks and 21 pressures. Like, they got some dudes up front now that I think is going to make it for an interesting matchup here against Georgia's offensive line, which I think has played better in recent weeks. Obviously, I think they've been running the ball a lot better. And I don't know if that's – I'm not the expert to tell you whether that's because they got Dajan Edwards back or it's because the offensive line is playing a lot better. But, Dan, I'm real interested to see how this battle plays out in the trenches, specifically Georgia's offense versus Florida's defense. Because, truly, how Georgia's offense plays in the trenches is, I think, going to be the main determining factor in how this game plays out from an offensive perspective. And that's cliche as it can be. But if Georgia can't run the football and you're going up against a Florida team where they're going to try and beat you on the ground offensively, like they live and die by the ground game, and you can't run the football yourself, and you're having to play hurry-up, one-dimensional football, I wouldn't say that is, in my opinion, a great strategy plan for success, if you will.
Well, I think the one thing that nobody's ever disputed is that Georgia's offensive line has immense talent. I think the one thing that everybody has questioned is the amount of productivity they're getting out of them. As far as pass blocking goes, I don't know that it's ever really been a concern at any point during the season. To me, I've had a chance to watch almost every single game on playback as opposed to being live. So I never, and I mean, obviously you don't feel the emotion of the game that way, but I never really felt like Carson Beck has been under siege and running for his life at any point during the season. I feel like he's been pretty comfortable. I would say there were times earlier in the season where the run blocking just was not good. I won't say it's atrocious or anything like that. I won't go that far. I'd just say that it wasn't good. Maybe for whatever reason, and I don't know what that reason is. I'm not smart enough to know why. But I will say that it seems like it's getting better. And again, the one thing that we've never questioned is the talent on that offensive line. So you have a couple things working in your favor. You have an immensely talented group of individuals on the offensive line who I think are getting a little bit more comfortable playing together now because they were kind of jumbled around for a minute because of some injuries. So I think heading into this week with a bye week has the ability to – we have the ability now to see possibly the best version of this offensive line. So I feel a little bit more comfortable there. You know, the one question that everybody has is how is Georgia going to replace or supplement Brock Bowers? Well, I watched Oscar Delp play in high school. I've watched Lawson Lucky play in high school, and I've watched them absolutely go off. So the one thing that I will tell you is, are they Brock Bowers? No, they are not. Are they capable of making some plays in the passing game? 100% I feel like they are. They're very capable of making plays. I know Oscar Delp has done it on multiple occasions in high school where he absolutely torched defenses running across the middle, making plays, making absolutely fantastic catches. And I'm telling you, fantastic catches, not just, hit them in the numbers, catch and run. I'm talking about highlight plays. Is he Brock Bowers? No. Lawson Lucky, I've watched him make plays. I've watched him block. I've watched him do a lot of different things. I've watched him make incredible plays. I watched him make a first down catch against Mountain View in the playoffs that absolutely saved that season for Norcross and advanced them to the next round. Is he Brock Bowers? No, he's not Brock Bowers. Is he capable? 100%. Hell yes, he's capable of making plays. The biggest issue, in my opinion, is the run blocking because Brock Bowers has gotten a lot better at run blocking. But then again, Brock Bowers isn't Darnell Washington. And maybe that's why we've seen such a regression in the running game is because we don't have that big agent zero on the end of the line just busting people's asses. So, yeah, like in my opinion, and I could be 100% wrong, but in my opinion, based on what I saw in high school, I think Lawson Lucky is probably more of a candidate to be a better blocker than Oscar Delp is. But that remains to be seen, and that is just speculation on my part because we haven't really seen anything out of Lawson Lucky to this point. The other one is Pierce Spurlin because I watched him play in high school too, and I watched some of the catches he made, and he is fast. Like, he is fast. So those are just the tight ends. But then you have Dominic, Jack Saint. You have our boy Lad McConkey. You have all those guys. There's so many opportunities for guys to step up and make plays, Harrison. I mean, to say that Georgia doesn't have bodies to make up that production would be silly. Absolutely silly to say. Now, it has to be done, and it remains to be seen, but they have candidates, and the list is long and distinguished.
Absolutely. We've already seen a little bit of a shifting, at least when Lad McConkey came back, to how Georgia handles third downs. I think when Lad McConkey was out, you had your best bet was to say that the ball was going to Brock Bowers or Marcus Rosemary-Jack Saint. Marcus Rosemary-Jack Saint, even last year, kind of came on as that third down contested catch guy that you could trust to go get you a first down and move the chains. Brock Bowers doesn't need to be said. Go watch the Auburn game. Dude moved the chains every time he catches the ball, it felt like. Wouldn't be surprised if he actually did. So, to me, but now with Lad McConkey back, at least in that Auburn game, Lad McConkey was the third down guy. I would be perfectly fine if Georgia came out here and said, all right, we don't want to play Lad McConkey the whole game. We don't want to play Lad McConkey even, 40, 50 snaps. We just want to play him maybe 20 to 30. I would be fine with those 20 to 30 snaps coming on third down. Just third down alone. All right, Lad, it's third down, third and medium, third and long. Say, all right, Lad, get out there, go run an out route, go do something, go make a play, and be the third down guy. Because I think Carson Beck, that's the one aspect, one relationship that I think we're seeing build between those two, is that connection between each other. I'd be perfectly fine if they just say, Lad McConkey, you're the third down guy, go out there and go play. And that's the only thing we see from him. Be perfectly fine with it. We'd love to see him in the offense as a whole. We'd love to see healthy Lad McConkey back because we know how dynamic he can be. But I think third down's really going to be where Georgia misses Brock Bowers most. Like I just said, they've had guys that can do it and can step up and go make plays, but they haven't done it on a consistent basis because they haven't had to. And that's really the big thing in this game for Georgia is, okay, you're playing without a safety net. It's third and 15 and nobody else is open, but 19 might have a step on this guy. So let's go give it a 19, let 19 be 19. That's not there anymore. That's what needs to be seen. That's what needs to be put on tape. And I'm really excited to see this Georgia offense go to work because the one thing, Dan, and I saw it on Instagram, and I'm going to pull it up right now. Mr. Aaron Murray, the all-time SEC leading career passer in SEC history, came out with some big praise for that guy, Carson Beck. And Aaron Murray's been on the Carson Beck wagon. I don't want to call it bandwagon because Aaron Murray was probably, if there is a Carson Beck bandwagon, Aaron Murray invented it. Aaron Murray was toting the guy's flag from the very beginning and said, this guy's going to be a good quarterback. And everything that he's done since looks like Carson Beck's going to be a good quarterback. Aaron Murray said, Dan, posted by the Georgia Players Lounge, and I quote, when asked to put the team on his back, he has done it over and over. He's the best pure thrower in the SEC. That's high praise, like insanely high praise. Pure thrower in the SEC, we're talking about he's going up against Joe Milton, insane NFL arm talent, doesn't have the production that people like. And I know my friend Stoddard, my boy Jay Will, are going to be in my mentions later on our text message saying Joe Milton ain't going to the NFL. He has the traits to do it. I know this was the Anthony Richardson thing. Has the traits, but didn't really show it on the field, at least consistently. Joe Milton's a good thrower. Spencer Rattler's another one that I think has an NFL arm, despite what people may say. But that is some high praise, Dan. Pure throw in the SEC. That's a take right there.
Yeah, I think Jackson Dart does a really good football. I think I watched him make tremendous plays. I think there's a couple guys to throw a really good ball, but I at the end of the day, Carson Beck is plenty good enough to be the starting quarterback at Georgia. And he's done nothing wrong, and he's done nothing to dissuade me. Like when Stetson first took over at Georgia, there were plenty of things to criticize. There were plenty of things that needed to get better, right? I mean, if you're being fair, at the beginning of Stetson, it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies. Okay, it wasn't all great. But from the beginning, when Carson Beck has taken over, you have to just be an angry little elf to try to find something wrong with him because it ain't him. any inefficiency that we have in the offense ain't Carson Beck. So I've got zero issues with Carson Beck. And if Aaron Murray wants to say he's the best quarterback in the SEC, then by God he is. Because Aaron knows a hell of a lot more about quarterbacks than I do. And I can't point to one thing to argue with him. Other than I like Jackson Dart. But other than that.
Dan, this brings me to this just popped up in my head. Let's talk about real quick, and then I got one more thing that I want to hit. Out of every SEC team, how many teams currently constructed would you not start Carson Beck over their current starting quarterback?
All right, so I don't like him, but I don't think you could start Carson Beck over Spencer Rattler. I like Jackson Dart a lot more than most. I think if they were on equal footing, right? If they both showed up at the same time, I don't know who would win that job, but I would think probably Jackson Dart because he's older. And then outside of that, I mean, Jaden Daniels is really talented. I think, again, and this is both people showing up at the same time and having to go, or not one knowing more than the other. I think Jaden Daniels would probably get the nod from most coaches. I think Jackson Dart might get the nod from most coaches. I think Spencer Rattler would. Outside of that, man, that's tough. Like I think he starts for every other team. Am I crazy?
I think I'm with you. I think those are the three names. Maybe outside of Jackson Dart, I think him and Dart are maybe a toss-up at this point. But definitely Jaden Daniels and Spencer Rattler. I'm in agreement with you 100%. I think you bring either of those two quarterbacks into Georgia's offense. Whew, be fun to watch.
The reason I say Dart is because he can run. Like he's very mobile. Like you know what I'm saying? He adds that dimension. Yeah. I just think he has a little, but like because I think Carson Beck probably throws a better ball consistently than Jackson Dart, but I think Jackson Dart has so many different intangibles, it would be hard. But I mean, seriously,
I can get behind the take. I can definitely get behind the take.
And that's not a criticism of Carson Beck, please. I don't want everybody.
That's more of a praise to Jackson Dart,
right?
More than anything. Dan, let's hit one more point here. Florida's offense. We haven't talked about it. I think people were thoroughly impressed with Graham Mertz recently with what he's done. I believe it was specifically the game last weekend or the week before where, who was it? Was it Kentucky's defense made him look like a Heisman Trophy candidate? Where he came back and just threw. No, South Carolina made him look like a Heisman Trophy candidate. Whew, man was throwing the piss out of the football in that game. And then, they're not a passing offense by any means. By no means are they a passing offense. They're a run the ball. They're going to run the ball. They're going to try to pound the rock, kind of like 2016 through 18 Georgia, where they're going to run. They're going to live and die by the run game, and it's led by probably two of the best SEC backs in Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne, the younger brother of Travis Etienne. Both guys have already accounted for over 400 yards rushing. Like that's what we're talking about right here. We are 6 games in. No, actually 7. 6 or 7. 6 or 7 games in. They have 438 yards and 407 respectively with 7 TDs combined. Dan, we talk about the rushing defense for Georgia. They've had their bounce back performance since giving up over, I believe it was 200 yards to Auburn. Had a really good week against Kentucky. And Brooks Austin put it best when breaking down that Auburn game. It's, the strategy to beating Georgia on the ground for Auburn wasn't running at Georgia. It was running around with some misdirection, trying to get to the perimeter where Georgia has athletes to stop the perimeter run. They just weren't there like they usually were. I'm interested to see how Florida does it because I think Florida has the capability maybe to mix in what Hugh Freeze did, but I also think they're going to stick to what I think is their values of, hey, we're going to pound the rock, mano y mano, up the middle to the outside. We're going to do it all. So I think that's where this game plays out on defense. I really don't have a worry for Florida's passing game. I think Georgia's secondary has played at a really high level as of late, and I don't really see a problem with Graham Mertz. I think the big thing is stopping the run, and I really want to see this pass rush eat because that's the one thing we haven't seen. They took over the South Carolina game in the second half, but we haven't really seen a 4-quarter effort of just dominating the guy in front of you up front.
The one thing that I remember hearing this summer with Graham Mertz is the comparison to Kirk Cousins, where he's really good all the time, except for when it matters most. And I think that's a little bit unfair to Kirk Cousins, but and maybe unfair to Graham Mertz. I'm not 100% sure, but that's the one thing I kept hearing was that he does not. Oh, here we go. This freaking guy. Go ahead. Listen. When I pop in the comments of your show, I'm supportive, and and I support you guys, and I'm saying positive stuff. You come in here and just sabotage the damn thing. I'm glad you're going to sit here and face the music, you piece of crap.
Listen, you come into the comments and you make comments, or Harrison comes in there and he makes comments and tries to get me to smile or break character, right? I just ignore you. I just ignore you. You're over here reading comments while you're in the middle of giving a rant. That's a rookie mistake, my man. You got to be – listen, if you're mid-rant, you got to ignore the comments. You come back to the comments afterwards. You don't go to the comments mid-rant yourself.
That's on me,
you.
Well, listen.
I flash them.
Listen, not friend of show. It has the least fan-friendly show on the entire space. They don't answer any questions on the show.
That's fake news. Fake news.
Not.
We definitely answer questions. You just got to make relevant questions.
Oh, bro, come on. I am on point all the damn time. Hey, so what did you think about my Kirk Cousins, Graham Mertz combo? What do you got there?
Repeat it a little bit for me.
All right, so the knock on Graham Mertz coming into Florida was that he's got a lot of Kirk Cousins to him, where he's really good all the time, except for when it matters in the biggest games, he doesn't perform. So I said that might be a little critical and a little unfair. I don't know that he has a resume long enough to really go that deep, but it's kind of a comp.
This year, we don't really have that much information on Mertz to I don't know. Siri is listening to me apparently somehow on my laptop, which I don't even know how that just happened. But as far as this season goes, right, like the biggest game was obviously like Utah was early on, and no, he didn't have a great game against Utah to start the season. South Carolina, they ended up winning that game. Kentucky just beat the crap out of them in the run game anyways, and that's a team kind of thing for me. So I don't know. And as far as like Kirk Cousins goes, lately he's been primetime Kirk lately. That's the thing. So I don't know if I would make that comparison to Kirk Cousins, because on these Thursday nights, these Monday nights and stuff, he seems to come through. So I don't know that I would make that comparison for that part alone.
Yeah, but playoffs are coming. We'll see what he does in the playoffs. I mean, because that's when it matters most, right? But
stars come out when the lights get brighter.
Yeah, I think the one thing, if I'm Georgia, I would be concerned about is if Florida was able to establish a running game. If they were really able to get it going in the run game, I think that would make me nervous. What about you? What would be the one thing that could happen Saturday early in the football game that would make you nervous?
What would make me nervous? Georgia turnovers. That's been what I've said all season long, because the biggest point difference for Georgia this season has come from like turnovers. You look back to UAB, they've scored touchdowns off turnovers. South Carolina scored off of turnovers. Auburn was scoring off of turnovers. I mean, you could take 2 touchdowns off the board against Auburn with turnovers. And so then that game looks massively different. But it's not even just the interception problem, because Carson's only thrown 4 picks on the season. He threw 1 in that Auburn game that, in my opinion, really wasn't a bad throw. It was just a really good play by the defender. So I'm not even putting that on Carson. What I would say is that it's the fumble issue. So what would scare me is if in the first, second quarter, Georgia puts the ball on the ground and that, on our side of the field and gives them a 30, 40-yard field to score, that's when you get in trouble. And that's when you're on the road. Jonathan and I talked about this on Sunday, was this environment is top notch. I mean, it's half Florida fans, half Georgia fans. If you give them a spark like a fumble and a potential score early in that game, then all of a sudden that crowd on the other side goes berserk and then it feels like a home game for the other team all of a sudden. So what would concern me? Turning the ball over early and letting them capitalize on it.
To me, and y'all are gonna pound me for this, but take another 28-3 lead into halftime. Please don't do it.
Why you guys?
That was where the game turned last year for a little bit in the third quarter.
28-3. How them Cowboys doing? Okay, how's Dak looking this year? Okay, if you're all talking about 28-3, we're gonna go to the Cowboys.
Hold up, boys.
Jesus Christ.
If y'all don't remember, it was Georgia had 28-3 lead at halftime. and the game was within one score by the end of the third quarter last year.
No.
That's where it got close again. Florida kind of turned it around. Let's rephrase
Well, you got to think too that when you go up by a lead like that, right? What do you stop doing? You're not going to stretch the field anymore. You're not going to sit here and put the ball at risk and risk one of those turnovers that I'm talking about. So you're going to run and you're going to throw short and you're going to be conservative because you have a 25-point lead, as you should be. Now, you shouldn't be too conservative where you're not trying to score at all, but you can't be out here throwing 30-yard routes and stuff like that and risking turnovers or picks because you want to, run the score up or something like that. And Kirby's never been the guy to do that in his career anyways. So I think that part is kind of expected when you have a big lead. The biggest thing is your defense has to keep holding.
And to make your point, Stoddard, to kind of, talk about your point real quick about turnovers, looking at the game log from last year in the second half, Georgia's first 2 drives, fumble and a pick. Florida capitalized off both of those. Florida scored right out of the gate after halftime. They got a field goal after the Kenny McIntosh fumble, and they got a touchdown to make it 28-20 after Stetson Bennett threw a pick. Stoddard's biggest fear was kind of what played out last year, in the sense that Florida capitalized at, off the right moments. But luckily, Georgia came back and played a good ball game the rest of the way, had 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Turnover on downs late in the fourth, but game was already over by that point. It's 42-20.
If you go and look at the history of games between teams that are good, right? I'm not talking about like one really good, one really bad. But if you go look at games where they're relatively even, it's special teams and turnovers are the great equalizer, right? You have a big couple plays out of special teams, or you have a big couple turnovers. I mean, look when Georgia beat the heck out of Florida. If I'm not mistaken, they got early turnovers and capitalized on them in that football game. And the Tennessee
one
game
of them was a pick six, right before that half, the game that the 42-point game or whatever it was. Georgia turned the ball over 3 times at the end of the second quarter, right before half, and scored on all of them.
Well, just look at the Tennessee game from last year, right? At the beginning of that game, Georgia was not absolutely dominating that football game until Brett Thorson's punt down to the 1-inch line. And I know everybody just rolls their eyes when you say a punt turned the tide in that game, but it really did. It pinned Tennessee deep. Didn't they get a safety or something?
It should have been a safety.
Carter. Yeah,
it should have been a safety, and then they ruled it an incomplete. What did they rule? I don't remember what they ruled it, but it was contra. Actually, I think they did rule it a safety, but everybody was saying it could have been a fumble and a touchdown for Georgia is what they said, but it ended up being ruled a safety, I believe.
But I'm a punter. Trust me, bro. 100%. No, I'm serious. I mean, listen, all jokes
that play,
aside,
you're not wrong, though. That play definitely was a spark moment for Georgia, and it was a huge moment.
And, and that would be another concern of mine is that we have not seen Peyton Woodring have to really make a kick yet. And that would be, and I'm not saying this is the week where that's going to happen. I'm just saying we haven't seen Peyton Woodring have to make a kick yet.
We haven't seen him make a kick with the game on the line is what I think you're referring to there for sure. I will say this, I was extremely critical of Woodring early in the season after the first 4 games, and he had 3 misses through the first couple games there. But since then, he's really turned it around. I think he's kicked about 2 field goals a game since then, and he's made all of them. Some of them have been 20, 30-yarders, but I think he made a 40-something yarder against Kentucky or something like that. But I think he's doing better, and it might be one of those things that, he was the highest rated kicker out of high school, coming in, and maybe he just had those nerves of, hey, I'm playing in Sanford Stadium, the crowd's there, it's loud, it's a different environment, the pressure's on me, and he just don't really know, he's got to settle in. Since then, he's been solid, but you're right, he has not had to attempt a game-winning field goal, a must-make field goal, and that's when you really know what kind of kicker he is. Hopefully, this game is out of control and it doesn't matter like that. My hot take on it is going back to what I said a minute ago. If Georgia doesn't turn the ball over in this game, if they're clean on the turnover margin, they're going to win by 3 scores.
Woo!
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. If Georgia plays clean, which I think is the biggest question, I'm gonna go ahead and steal Dan's take before Dan's even able to give it. If Georgia's up for this game won't be close. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it because as Dan
I'm
says,
getting Kentucky vibes, guys.
That's what I feel too. But what I want to say, Stoddard, is maybe we're a week too early. Maybe the Kentucky vibes comes next week in Athens against Missouri, a team that kind of snuck up on you last year and now comes into your place undefeated. But then again, you have 3 games like that in a row. You have Missouri at home, ranked.
Tough part of the schedule.
Ole Miss at home, ranked. On the road to Tennessee, ranked. Like, are they going to pull out this, just 5-game stretch where they're up for every single opponent? Or are we bound to see a sleepwalking performance like we've seen before?
I don't think it's up. I think it's that Georgia realizes that they have a schedule now. Like, they have real football games now. So I think they're ready to play now. I mean, that's my takeaway, is that they've been sleepwalking through the season to get to this point of the season. I think this is the part that they've been looking forward to all along, coming out of the bye. Now, I think the Missouri thing is a surprise to everybody. They can say whatever they want to, and they can tell the reporters and smile and do all that other shit. I don't believe, not for 1 second, do I believe the players in that locker room were like, shit, Missouri's going to be tough. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that Missouri game. It's going to be rough. Like, I think it surprised everybody. So, but listen, Florida's Florida. Florida's a rival. If any of those kids in that locker room are raised Georgia fans, they already hate Florida. It's built in. So I think we're going to see a good Georgia this weekend. I think we're going to see a great Georgia next weekend. And then Tennessee, we'll see a good Georgia again too. But I wouldn't.
The thing about Tennessee is the East could be locked up before we ever get to Tennessee.
And that's why I say, because I don't know.
Tennessee could be a one of those games that like doesn't even matter by the time you get there, which is kind of disappointing because I know we all circled it on the calendar as being such a huge matchup on the road, like what are you made of type game. And Tennessee's already lost a couple games at this point, so if Georgia beats, I think, all right, so if Georgia beats Florida and Missouri, I believe it's already locked up. It's either that or
that
they might have to
up,
beat.
Potter.
I think they have to beat Ole Miss as well. As long as they win those games, because if they don't beat Ole Miss, then say Tennessee beats Georgia, they're both 2 lost teams, and they get the head-to-head at that point. So you got to win out through Ole Miss to be able to clinch it. But the East could be locked up before you ever go to Knoxville.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, I was listening to the radio today, and it might have been Hudson or somebody. Somebody said that if Georgia loses to Missouri, basically Missouri has won the East at that point. Like, that's just crazy to me.
I mean, if Missouri doesn't lose another game.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly.
Like, Missouri still has games to play at that point. Like they could still lose a game, but their only loss right now is to LSU, and it was a pretty decent game there. So if they were to beat Georgia, they would only be a 1-loss team, and they would have the head-to-head over Georgia as well.
Right.
Guys, real quick, looking at Missouri's schedule, they're in a bye week this week. They got Georgia versus Tennessee at home, Florida at home, and then at Arkansas. That's a pretty tough slate for them. I'm interested to see how they close out their season. But before we wrap it up, Zachary Moss replies to Sider, says, how many times do we have to tell you Georgia's going to be 7-5 this year? Hey, Georgia still has enough games to go 7-5. That is still a possibility at this point. Maybe those jokes will become a reality at some point. All right, final predictions. Georgia versus Florida.
Wait, hold on. Did this man just secretly wish
it.
that we go? Oh, my God.
He said it.
Hey, I'm just saying, there's enough games for it to happen. Anyways, Georgia versus Florida predictions. Stoddard, you're a special guest. You get to go first. What's your score prediction for this game?
If Georgia goes with no turnovers, that's what I'm going to predict this on. As I'm going to say Georgia stays clean. They keep the ball off the ground, and they don't throw any picks or anything like that. I'm going to say Georgia. I'm going to say it's 14-35, Georgia.
Dan, solo screen. You hate this. What do you say?
He just threw me off by giving me.
I said it backwards, but it's okay.
All right, so the number that I had,
I was trying to figure out how many points I was going to let Florida have. Is what I was thinking.
So he had me messed up. But anyway, the number that I've had in my head all week long, and I can't shake it. Like, I wanted to go a different number, but for whatever reason, this keeps coming back. Is 38-17. I don't know why I have 38-17 in my head. I don't know if that's ever been a Georgia score or a recent score. I'm not really sure why it's in my head, but it's just 38-17 has been in my head all week.
Whew. I'm going to go 42-10. I'm going to go out here and just say it's outlandish. I'm going to say it's a blowout.
Dang.
Georgia's going in there and whoop that behind. And Dan's going to be having Gator on Sunday because he can have Gator on Sunday. The boys may even go over if Dan wants to grill out for the boys again. 42-10,
I know where he can get
Georgia
some.
takes it.
Hey, listen, you can go to Papa Do's and
You can get some. You can get some at Strickland's, which is right down the road from me. That's what Wes Blankenship was showing on Twitter today. If y'all saw that, that was like 5 minutes from my house.
Ooh.
Really?
Hey, if Georgia shuts out Florida, meet at Dan's house. That's what I just heard for some Gator. I'm just joking.
Listen, if I'm going to go eat Gator, I'm gonna go to freaking Papa Do's. Have you ever had their freaking Gator at Papa Do's?
I've not been to Papa Do's yet.
Have you ever been to Papa Do's, Jeremiah?
I have not.
Oh, do you like seafood?
Yeah, I like seafood.
Oh, Papa Do's. Hop to
I'll tell y'all where
Take
I'm
your
going to
wife.
get some Gator.
Take your wife to Papa Do's. She'll love it.
See, she doesn't like seafood. She doesn't eat seafood.
I got
so, but I'll tell you where I'll get some Gator.
You've definitely been in Papacitos.
No.
Wow.
Listen,
well, I'll be in Jacksonville for this game, and there's a place down there, like over by my aunt's house. I'll be down there, and there's a place that's called Whitey's Fish Camp. That's where I will be eating some Gator if it happens. If Georgia wins, I will be over there.
Don't get Stoddard started. Do not get Stoddard started. We're not going to.
Yeah, they might have some. It'll give you the runs too.
Whoa. Okay. Calm down there, quick.
At least they have the bathroom for you to use.
Calm down there, quick. Place is clean. We do not allow Bucky's hate on this program. Stoddard, thank you for hopping on and lighting up the show. I was like, Dan, I texted him within 5 minutes of you asking me
if we could finish the damn show.
Chat. Yeah, finish the damn show. I said, we got another segment to hit. I texted Stoddard like, hey, yo, can you get on in like 10 minutes? Stoddard said, yeah, I gotta get some stuff together. I love how he comes on here impromptu, has his hair on fleet, just perfect. Like he just wakes up out of bed without even.
You ain't gotta get ready if you stay ready, my man.
Just fucking
absolutely beating all of us with the hair game today. Dan has a hat on. I didn't rock the hat today. I just got my hair cut, so my hair's fine right now. But anyways, Stoddard, we thank you for coming on. Y'all can find Stoddard over at the Classic City Sports Podcast with his man Jay Will, who is a ghost right now because that man's grinding.
Man's
while
busy.
The boys are just hanging out. So we appreciate y'all. We appreciate Jay Will. We appreciate Stoddard. Zach, we appreciate you for being here. Oh, wow. Okay. Y'all gonna have to settle that somewhere someday. Dan, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me at Dan Kiley 3. You can find Harrison at Harrison Reno, and like he said, Jeremiah Stoddard. You can find them at Classic City Sports. What's your Twitter, Jeremiah Stoddard?
The Stodfather.
The Stodfather. That's right. I always forget that. So hey,
I forget what was his app before then. My bad, Dan.
I don't remember.
I don't either.
Anyway, yeah, follow their show, follow our show. Their show is on Sunday nights, I believe, at 8:00. Right? You sticking with that one? Yep.
8:00
Sunday night,
on
8:00. Us Tuesday, 7:30. We're always here. So yeah, like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff.
Amen.